Okay, here we go. Example 653. So, a bedroom has an area of 117 feet squared. Okay. The length is 4 more feet than the width. We need to find the length and width of the room. Okay. So this bedroom, it has a rectangular shape, and I know that because that's what the book said. All right, but you can assume that in a problem like this. Most rooms are rectangles or squares. Okay, so the area is 117 feet squared. Okay. Now the length is 4 more feet than the width. So the length depends on the width. But our width doesn't depend on anything. Our width can be anything. So why don't we go ahead and just put our width down? W. Say W is our width. Now length is 4 more feet than width. Okay. So if you're watching this at home, pause, see if you can figure out what I would put down here for length. Okay, so you might have said L. Put L for length. Well, now we have two variables. Two variables. Bad news. Bad news. We want one variable. One variable, good news. So, lucky for us, we have a relationship between length and width. Length is 4 more feet than width. So, isn't length just W plus 4 feet? So, plus 4. Okay. All right, now we're getting somewhere. So now we just need to think about the area of this thing. So area of a rectangle, isn't it just area is equal to length times width? Okay. So in our case, our area is 117 feet squared. We are given that, so we can plug that in. So 117, and then we'll deal with units later. So 117. And now length times width, well, I'm not going to use L. I'm going to plug in my W plus 4. So length times width. Now let's compute this. So we got 117, and if we distribute, we got W squared plus 4W. All right, and now this is something I know how to solve, right? We want to get 0 on one side, so we get 0 is equal to W squared plus 4W minus 117. And I'm just going to flip-flop these. I like it the other way around. 0 on the right side. Okay, so now we need two numbers that multiply to be negative 117, add to be 4. You could do this other method that I showed you, right? Divide by numbers, so let's do that quick. 117. When we are worried about what goes into 117, I don't care about negative, so I'm just going to do positive. So I'm not going to divide this by 2. Let's divide it by 3, see what we get. Okay, we get 39. So 117 divided by 3 is 39. 39 can be divided by 3, I know that. That's going to give me 13. 13's prime. So 117 is equal to 3 times 3 times 13. It's a terrible 3. Okay. All right, you could play around with this. You could try, oh, what about 3 times 39? Well, those aren't going to add up to be 4, right? But if we had 9 times 13, aha, and we made one of those negative, now we might get to 4. So I can see that W plus 13 times W minus 9. Okay, now if we were to add 13 and negative 9, we get to 4. Multiply those two, we get to negative 117. Okay, everything is good. So set this equal to 0. Set this equal to 0. And solve. So W is equal to negative 13. and W is equal to 9. But now you're going to see we have two solutions, but we most definitely only have one length here. So if we look at these solutions, one of these does not make sense. I'm gonna bet my entire salary that W equals negative 13 feet does not make sense for our real world situation here. So our length is going to be, or our width, sorry, excuse me. Our width is 9 feet, which means we can plug in this 9 here and we get 13 feet. So there are our answers. Okay, you could go ahead and write this out like 9 feet times 13 feet. Those are our dimensions for our bedroom. Okay, now on to example 654. For example 654, we're going to the ocean. All right, we got a boat sail. We have a boat sail, and it's a right triangle. Okay, so the hypotenuse of this right triangle, 17 feet long. And then we know one leg of this triangle, so one of the sides that isn't the hypotenuse, one leg is 7 feet shorter than the other leg. We need to find the length of every side of the sail. Okay, step one is always draw a picture. Every great idea and project began with a really good picture. Ever. Okay, so we know 17 feet, right? 17. And if you want to make this a little boat sail, you can. So let's go ahead and do that really quick. Okay, so there's our boat. All right. So we know one of these legs, so here's a leg, here's a leg. One of these legs is 7 feet shorter than the other leg. And in our picture, all right, this one is definitely shorter than that one, maybe by about 7 feet. Okay. Now we're going to need to use a variable. Okay. So let's call this one, since this is 7 feet shorter, x minus 7. It's 7 feet shorter than x. So this must just be x, because this side is 7 feet shorter than that side. Now we need to think about the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. All right. So let's apply the Pythagorean theorem here. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Here's our c. And then either one of these can be a or b. It doesn't matter. We'll say a and b. So let's plug them in. So we got x squared plus x minus 7 squared is equal to 17 squared. And now if we solve x squared, I'm actually going to write these out. X minus 7 times x minus 7. That helps me solve. And then this actually becomes 289. Okay, so now we need to do a little bit of multiplication here. So that stays the same. We've got it plus x squared minus 7x minus 7x plus 49, and that's equal to 289. From here, combining like terms, so x squared plus x squared, 2x squared. These become negative 14x. And then if I subtract 289 from 49, I should get negative 240. That is going to equal 0. From here, we're solving like we have been the whole time. Okay, so they all have a 2 in common, so I can pull out a 2. I get x squared minus 7x minus 120 is equal to 0. At this point, pause. Pause your video, see if you can finish the problem. Okay, hopefully you gave it a shot. So we need two things that multiply to be negative 120, add to be negative 7. Okay, so our two things just so happen to be negative 15, positive 8. Okay, so now we're going to set each piece equal to 0. So let's start with 2. Well, 2 cannot equal 0, so we're not going to worry about that. How about x minus 15? Okay, x is equal to 15. And how about here? X plus 8 equals 0. X is equal to negative 8. Well, we're dealing with real world problems once again. So can we really have a negative length? No. So no good. No good. We're left with x is equal to 15. Okay. So for this length, this side of the triangle, that's going to be 15 feet for our x. And then over here, well, if we plug 15 in, x minus 7 would be 8, wouldn't it? 8 feet. So our answer, I'll just redraw my triangle since it got pretty messy. We have 17 feet, 15 feet, and 8 feet.